items. The Zoom webinar co-hosts for this meeting are Rebecca Foster, Tanya Mayer, John Nergy, and Michelle Traeger. Tanya Mayer and John Nergy will be managing attendees throughout the meeting. We are also streaming live on the GIS LIS YouTube channel for people to watch without registration. We are recording this meeting and plan to have it on our YouTube channel. Everyone will start muted with video off for best performance. Panelists may unmute and turn on video during presentations. If you have questions or comments, webinar attendees may raise hand and we can turn on your mic or use the chat. Unfortunately, there is no option to interact while watching the YouTube live stream. Michelle Traeger will be monitoring the Zoom chat window. We will try to address comments and questions during the meeting, but if we don't have time, we will respond to you afterwards. For our guests of our award winners who are joining us today, I want to let you know that our mission is to develop and support the GIS professional in Minnesota for the benefit of our state and its citizens. Our agenda today is an update on the state of the state with Dan Ross, our Minnesota Chief Geospatial Information Officer. We were able to do Educator today virtually. Stacy Stark, our K-12 Education Committee co-chair, will give us an update on how that went. She will also give us an update on how our education fund is doing. And then Wu Chang, our higher education rep, will be announcing this year's Student Scholarship Award winners. Stacy will join us again to present our Distinguished Educator Award. Mark Kotz, who is our Awards Committee Chair, will be presenting this year's Polaris Awards and Lifetime Achievement Awards. I will then wrap the meeting up with our business meeting of our Board of Directors accomplishments. Dan, will you please give us an update on the state of the state?
Thanks, Rebecca, and thanks to the consortium for allowing me some time this morning to talk with you and the community. Each year, one of the highlights of my year is being able to share with you a little bit about some of the good things that are going on about GIS around the state. And again, this year I get to do that. So thank you again to the consortium. Well, and here we are with technical difficulties right out of the gate. I cannot. So I apologize for that. I'm gonna stop sharing for a moment. We will try that one more time. You should see the slides again. Huh. One more time. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see that. There. I'm going to start out this with something that I think many of you have all been involved in, and at many levels, both in government and in the private sector, where GIS is really taking center stage with the pandemic that's going on around us. I imagine that this has throughout your organization and helping to help your leaders and your organizations understand the impacts to your local community. We're looking at certainly across the United States. GIS has really taken center stage as we move forward. Everything related to public health and safety, from the dashboards that are out there that identify the number of cases and where those cases are happening in our state, to breaking that down by the type of exposure that we have or by age. Our GISers in the state, and that's of course many of you, have really stepped up to shine a light on what GIS can do. And that's everything from showing these kinds of dashboards to having things as simple as maps out there for child care providers for emergency workers. We have a variety of different ways that data is being presented by many of you, from our counties to the state. Here's an example of both Hennepin and Clay County. St. Louis County has a site as well that is showing many different types of statistics and maps and activities. So hats off to all of you who have really, I'm sure, been asked to step up and provide your GIS expertise for not only those in your organization, but truly the public. Here's some examples of some of the good work that are being done in some of our cities in Bloomington and Minneapolis to really help keep the public informed about the effect of the pandemic on their communities. Including the Minnesota Geospatial Advisory Council Emergency Preparedness. You can see that they put a viewer out there that's actually deep in the data that's there. Hats off to them, and credits go to ShareGeo for standing this up and sharing that. So to all of you who have stepped up to support the COVID activities in your locality, hats off to you. Continuing on, to keep the public informed, you know, one of the big things today, of course, as the pandemic and the cases increase, it's where to get tested. And we're seeing more and more of that type of information out there that's interactive, that helps our public citizens to know where to go and get tested in our state. Everything from how we deal with schools is really important. And you can see here by some work that's being put out by the Department how our schools around the state are pandemic and how we're helping to keep folks informed of the type of activities that are going on and whether they're hybrid or in place within their school. We're also spending time in the environment and helping our citizens. This is an example of a public-facing site about our environment called the Groundwater Contamination Atlas that is helping folks in the communities to understand what truly is in their neighborhood. And it tells them the status of the site work and what contaminants are in their neighborhood, and it provides drinking water information. And so this was another great example of a collaborative effort where folks came together to share more information from the experts in the state, but sharing that through GIS and maps and really starting to put the analysis in there. Here's a little bit more on that we're integrating to provide both text and map type searches and give you a sense of the kinds of things that are going on out there in the community. Something that will be coming in the future is we're looking, our DNR here in Minnesota is taking a new look at how they manage public lands in Minnesota. I think many of you know that we have a huge amount of public land in Minnesota, and managing that public land is a huge effort. So there's a partnership going on between the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources and MnIT and MnGeo to really start to put together a public data layer regarding public lands in Minnesota. Here's an example of just a quick map about the amount of public lands in Minnesota, and you can see, especially in that northeast part of the state, how much public land there really is. Of course, the darker the color, the more public land that there is. And This is going to be used to help inform the citizens. It's going to be very structured. It's going to help all of our government agencies that manage public lands, from the county to the state to the different offices in the state, to be able to do that. Today we often manage public lands at this level, at the 40-acre parcel level, and that becomes a challenge for us when in all reality, this is how public lands really occur as part of the landscapes that are out there. So imagine that we're moving from this environment where we manage at a 40-acre level right down to the parcel level. So look for stuff like that, or look for this information to be coming in the 21 calendar year as a web service and a story map and a data set that all of you can help or you. I think you all know that next generation 911 continues to move forward. And of course, that involves many of you at the local level as authorities to help us move that forward. And we're continually trying to share new information and keep people informed. Just another example of where this would not occur without the collaboration that really in the community. Up this year with many of you may know, and many of you may not know that the 3D Geomatics Committee of the Geospatial Advisory Council is in pursuit of new LIDAR for Minnesota. And a group of folks have come together to really put together a statewide LIDAR acquisition plan for the state. If you haven't seen that, I'll show you some links to that in just a minute. They are published on the Geospatial Advisory Council website. They're meeting around the state with local and state and federal partners to come together around how we will do that acquisition in the state. There was a grant request put in last year that the state did receive a partnership from USGS and other federal partners for both Northeast Minnesota and Goodhue County, Minnesota. Goodhue has already been collected at a quality level 0. And the collection for Northeast Minnesota will occur in spring of 21. Additionally, we're going to submit 2 more grant requests this year, one to finish out the forested areas of the Northeast, and then we're putting together an area of interest in southern Minnesota. To give you a little bit more background, I would encourage you to take a look at the statewide LIDAR plan or the story map out there. And if you have any comments, you can reach out to the 3D Geomatics team through the email that are in those documents. So it's a really cool activity that's going on that's involving the entire GIS community to come together and not only put together funding, but to really put and decide how we're going to acquire and when we're going to acquire and all of those activities. So again, hats off to the community here. To give you a little bit more information, these are the LIDAR acquisition blocks that you will find in the plan. On the left side, you will see the larger blocks. Why the larger blocks? Because our federal partners and even us want to be able to collect large contiguous areas if we can. On the right-hand side of that map, you can see that we have broken that down a little farther, and the areas that are going to be collected are a little bit smaller, so they're manageable for the vendors or the contractors that will come in and acquire the LIDAR for us to acquire those areas. It's really been an awesome collaborative effort, and I feel very fortunate to be involved in it. A little bit more specifics. So on the left there is, those are the potential funders and partners in Southeast Minnesota, and you can see there's quite a mix in there. Everybody from FEMA to many of our county partners are in, our DNR and our DOT partners and our SWCDs and our NRCS for the state of Minnesota are really stepping up, and everybody's on board to help push this forward. So expect an area of interest for some part of southern Minnesota to go out in a grant here in the middle of November, or a grant request, excuse me, in the middle of November. On the right-hand side there, in the blue, you can see the area that we were successful in working and that area will be Collect 21. In the pink there, you can see the area that we want to pursue for a grant also in 21 that we will turn in a request for in November of this year. So a great thanks to the 3D Geomatics team and all the work that's gone into that, and all of those that have come to the meetings and listened about the acquisition plan and provided their input. It's truly a great effort that everybody's doing. This is part of a much larger program called the USGS 3D Elevation Program, 3DEP for short, where our federal USGS partners are really looking to cover the entire nation by 2023. This will be the first ever national baseline across the nation of consistent high resolution elevation data. This is see the coverage. The dark green are areas that are covered. The light green are areas that are planned. You can see our spots in northern Minnesota. And the light tan areas are areas that need to be collected yet. So you can see that we have a lot of work to do in Minnesota. And I appreciate that everybody's coming together to do that. This is a cost sharing program. All of the partners are coming together to fund that for the state of Minnesota. That is the end of my presentation in terms of state of the state. What I will say here is that that is really only a small part of what's going on in the state. I think many of you know that, and there's many local activities going on that I would love to feature in something like this. But thank you to everybody that provided information to help share this, and thank you again to the to share with all of you as members. To you.
Thank you, Dan. Our next presenter will be Stacy Stark, giving us an update on Educator Day.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can see the screen here. Yes, I'm going to update a little bit on our new Education Committee and Educator Day. So before I begin the update about Educator Day, I did want to just remind you that we previously had one Education Committee and we have two committees now. We have a Higher Education Committee. Wu Chang is the chair of that as the Higher Education Board representative. And then we broke off this K-12 Education Committee. The Higher Education Committee will continue to coordinate the conference scholarship program. We'll work on a budget for the higher education activities. The K-12 Education Committee is not necessarily chaired by a board member, but we do have board representation and the treasurer included in that. Additionally, we've pulled in for this current year some active teachers and retired teachers to help with Education Day and have a closer connection to the K-12 community. I wanted to note that both of the committees solicit the Distinguished Educator Award nominees and participate in that process. So the biggest event of the K-12 Education Committee is the Educator Day, which is usually held concurrently with the annual fall workshops. That's been the intention. This year was the 6th year. And since the annual conference was canceled, we thought that we wanted to try to continue to support teachers who were working remotely and maybe had even more of an appetite to work with ArcGIS online tools. We wanted to be able to still host those workshops. So we went ahead and did an Educator Day. We moved the date a little bit and held it on October 9th. The point of this day is to get teachers and educators who are working with school clubs. We have some technologists and other curriculum specialists that attend as well to learn about how GIS can be and is being used in K-12 curriculum. We provide stipends for the teachers who have to leave their classrooms to attend. It actually goes to the district in order to support the substitute teacher that they need to hire so they can attend. And that's been very helpful, and pretty much that was a barrier before we did that. So that's been great. And Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium has been the financial and logistical support of this day. So while the committee is comprised of some teachers, other volunteers, and GIS LIS members, and it's done in a partnership. We coordinate with the Department of Education and the Minnesota Alliance for Geographic Educators. It's really the consortium that made this happen with the financial and logistical support of the conference facilities and the event planning. This year, we weren't really sure what to expect doing this virtually, and we did have a lower attendance. We had 42 participants compared to up to 70 in 2018 and 60 last year. Of those participants, 64 were teachers, 36 of those were other types of educators and involved in the K-12 community. I was really pleased to see that a lot of the teachers who joined us this year didn't necessarily already have experience with ArcGIS Online or with using GIS in the classroom, and 71% had not attended the Educator Day event before. So this says to me that there is still an audience out there that we're reaching that is brand new, and a lot are learning about this event through word of mouth. We publicize it through the Department of Education, as well as the Minnesota Alliance for Geographic Educators and other teacher organizations. But we are reaching a lot of teachers, and you can see there we've got lots of great testimony. We heard great things this year from the smaller group. We had 8 different sessions presented, so hour-long workshop. Some were hands-on, some were more lecture style. And then we had at noon, we had a panelist of teachers. There were 5 different teachers that had prepared a 5-minute video of their work in their classroom with their students. And they prepared that, pre-recorded it, but then attended a panel live and questions could be asked, and it was really neat. Those are recorded. All the teacher videos are recorded online on our YouTube channel, as well as the session itself. So every one of those sessions, workshops, is available for you all too on the GIS LIS YouTube channel under Educator Day 2020. I just want to give a shout out to all the Geo mentors that have supported teachers over the years. Many have worked with the Minnesota on the Map competition, which we'll talk about in a minute, as Jim Hansen, our distinguished educator this year, has been the coordinator for the past 5 years of that. And so a lot of the members of GIS LIS have supported teachers in that competition by helping them through the process and working in their classrooms. We have about 20 on the list of GIS LIS members that have offered for geo mentoring, but there are many more that haven't necessarily gone through GIS LIS that are out there helping teachers. And so thank you very much. A couple of rock stars are listed there. Scott Freeberg, of course, started Educator Day and got the initiatives going again with the K-12 community, and is featured in a picture there with Jack Dangerman accepting a Special Achievement Award for the collaboration of GIS LIS, MAGE, and MnGeo and the Department of Education in these efforts. And then our own John Nergy was also a case study in the American Association of Geographers site. So thanks to everyone out there who's been helping with geo-mentoring. That's been great. Quickly, there's a new resource site. We've been working on this for a few years now, the giseducation.org domain that GIS LIS initially started, and we have now we've taken that domain to the University of Minnesota so that we can maintain that more easily through staff support. But it's a collaboration with MAGE, the Department of Education, GIS LIS, Geospatial, and there are probably other partners that will soon be contributing to this site with resources for teachers. So if you are a geo-mentor, this is a place to look for classroom materials and things that are Minnesota specific. So also, if you're interested in geo-mentoring and haven't yet signed up, or know of teachers who are interested in reaching out to someone who can help them with GIS in their classroom, there are forms to sign up for those initiatives on this site. Next, I want to talk about the Education Investment Fund. And the Education Investment Fund initially was started in 2007 as we separated the savings account that had been raised for scholarship types of support, and we called it the Education Investment Fund, and started changing a little bit of the how we talk about it in 2016 to try to extend the purpose beyond just scholarships, because we had been supporting scholarships for years, but we also started doing a lot of other education community related events like Educator Day. So the Education Investment Fund is the safekeeping of all your donations, and thank you so much. In 2019, we reached $100,000, which was the original goal, so that the scholarship component of those funding, the scholarship component could be funded off of the dividends of that fund. So the fund is over 100,000 now and growing, and our membership continues to be generous through our fundraising activities like networking events and the annual conference activities that bring in the raffle prizes, that bring in funding for this event. We also have many people who have taught workshops through our workshop events and donated their honorariums to this fund. So if we continue to invest in education in this way, we will have more than enough money to keep a healthy balance, as well as to support the scholarship activities and Educator Day and possibly other uses. So there's a Minnesota GIS LIS ad hoc committee currently that's been meeting monthly to address the stewardship and potential uses of this fund. I want to announce today that you'll see a survey probably in about a month after the next board meeting that will ask you members of your ideas on how Minnesota GIS LIS can continue to support education in the future. And make no mistake, we're not changing anything about the scholarship competition and keeping that at the forefront of the activities that we sponsor with these donated funds. However, we want to get your ideas about how education could be supported through K-12 students using GIS, possibly Minnesota college students in GIS programs in addition to the scholarship program. Maybe we want to support teachers more using GIS in the classroom, or even GIS professionals seeking work. So think about how your big ideas for how GIS LIS might be able to support education and in GIS in our state, and look for that survey, and please share your ideas with us. Thanks.
Thank you, Stacy, for those updates. Wu, will you please present this year's Student Scholarship Award winners?
Sure. So can you guys see the screen? Okay, so thank you, Rebecca. It's my pleasure to announce the 2020 Student Scholarship Award winner. Each awardee will receive $200. So thank you who participate. Let me walk through each recipient. Jackson Carr from Minnesota State University, Moorhead. Jacob Slaughter from University of St. Thomas. Zachary Simpson from Itasca Community College. Cole Anderson from University of Minnesota. Travis Armsby from University of Minnesota. Margaret Chittick from McAllister College. So congratulations again to all the winners. And then I really appreciate your big support to our future GIS professionals. I'll pass to Rebecca.
Thank you, Wu. We will now go back to Stacy Stark for our Distinguished Educator Award.
Thanks, Wu and Rebecca. Yeah, so I have the privilege today of presenting the 2020 Distinguished Educator Award. Actually, I'm going to talk about the award, and then Shauna Crossan from the University of Minnesota is going to present it to Jim with a little more information about Jim. So I just want to remind you that the Distinguished Educator Award is awarded each year to a higher ed or a K-12 oriented educator in the state of Minnesota. And we started this award a few years ago to recognize those educators who have demonstrated leadership, creativity, and enthusiasm for the effective use of geography and GIS to inspire, engage, and prepare students for participation in the workforce and geospatial community. And many of you may not know Jim Hansen as a GIS professional at our committees and our meetings. He has been a powerhouse behind the scenes to coordinate the Minnesota mapping contest that has brought so many K-12 educators into our membership and into our community of using GIS. He is a retired middle school teacher from Bloomington and has been extraordinary geo-mentor, working with over 40 teachers in Minnesota, and has been doing great work. And he definitely has demonstrated these characteristics that we're looking for with integrating GIS in his curriculum, the mentoring and volunteering work he's done, and he's been a leader to promote GIS workshops and the mapping contest, as well as teaching a lot of the workshops himself. So I'm going to pass this now to Shauna Crossan, who is going to say a few more words about Jim.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much. I am here just to introduce Jim and tell you a little bit of why he is so deserving of the 2020 Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium Distinguished Educator Award. As Stacy said, Jim is a retired geography and gifted teacher from Bloomington. And Jim has never really retired. I think in his retirement, he is putting even more time and energy into something that he is so passionate about. And his passion and energy is just, it's contagious. And it has inspired so many of us to continue or to really get involved. We see the potential of working with K-12 and the potential of these students. It's just amazing. And Jim believes so strongly in the potential of the students that I know we're going to see, if we haven't already, we're going to see GIS professionals in Minnesota that were introduced to GIS through the work of Jim Hansen. So over the last 25 years, Jim has demonstrated significant contribution to GIS education through his teaching, but really more importantly, I think, through the mentorship he has given to so many teachers. Not only has he gone into classrooms to help teachers, he's worked with teachers to teach teachers how to use GIS, as well as to create curriculum activities and so forth. Above and beyond, all of this is enough to get Jim the award, but in 2016, Esri proposed an idea for a mapping contest, and Jim decided that was going to happen. So he grabbed onto that idea. I think he drafted Stacy into the project, right, Stacy? And Jim single-handedly came up with the contest announcement guidelines, a website, recruited teachers, and we had a contest. It was all Jim that did this, and Jim continues to be the quiet and steadfast force behind the mapping contest ever since. He's taken care of all the details. He keeps the publicity going. He has made it just such a really powerful program. And in case you're interested, Minnesota students have taken more national awards at the national level. They do the Minnesota contest and they go to the national level, and Minnesota students have won more awards than any other state. And I think we need to, a lot of that goes to, is thanks to Jim and his work. The mapping contest has also led to some great geomentoring partnerships with between teachers and GIS professionals. It's been a very enriching, satisfying experience for many GIS LIS members, and has exposed both teachers and GIS professionals to the power of working together, and really to what students can do with this tool if we just let them go. And that's really Jim encouraging students just to jump in and run. He just really believes that students can take this and run with it, and we've seen that power. So I just want to thank Jim for his continued inspiration, his relentless, never-ending commitment to making this happen. And we know his work has truly had an impact, and I want to thank Jim for all of this, and he is well deserving of this award. Thank you.
Jim, are you on? Did you have a few words to say?
Yes, I do. Thank you so much, Stacy and Shauna, for the very, very kind words. This has been a very interesting journey for me in my retirement. I realized, as Shauna said, or Stacy said, when I retired, I was leaving behind something I dearly love to do, and working with GIS and Charlie Fitzpatrick out at Esri and all the people in the state of Minnesota. It's kind of made this passion I've had for getting data onto maps, which was something I did with students back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where they would take data and literally draw by hand choropleth maps to look for patterns. So when I saw the capabilities of ArcGIS Online, of being able to do that and the power of GIS, I got excited about it, and helping create the student mapping, online mapping contest has been really exciting and fun to watch it all unfold. And I'd like to also thank the GIS LIS professionals who have volunteered their time to be judges of the competition, starting with the very first year, when it was just simply a Minnesota competition that became the national competition the following year. And there's a group of about 5 or 6. And I recognized a few of the names as people were signing in that literally volunteered their times. And you're talking, looking at sometimes 25 entries and judging them on about 8 or 9 categories. And I understand how much time that takes. So I just want to say thanks to all the the people who have volunteered their time to do this. And yesterday, it arrived. I got a beautiful plaque from the Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium with the award, obviously. So I thank you again for that, and I look forward to continuing being involved in the following years. So thanks so much.
Thanks again, Jim. Congratulations. You really deserve this award.
Thank you, Stacy, Shanna, and Jim. Mark Kotz will now present our Polaris Awards and Lifetime Achievement Awards.
Thank you, Rebecca. I am Mark Kotz, and I'm seeing a big picture of Tanya on the screen, but that's not me. I chair the consortium's Polaris Leadership and Lifetime Achievement Award committees, which are responsible for reviewing and recommending nominations for these awards. And it's such a joy for me to be able to arrange for the presentation of these awards today for these deserving recipients. We're going to begin with the Polaris Leadership Award, which recognizes active, established leaders who are inspiring and leading us through their contributions, energy, and creativity. We have 2 Polaris Awards this year. The nominations for Polaris Awards are reviewed by a group of previous winners. Candidates are evaluated based on 3 criteria: significant contributions that have benefited our state and its citizens for at least 5 years, demonstrated leadership, energy, and creativity within and beyond one's normal job environment for the benefit of the greater GIS community, and involvement with the GIS LIS consortium, such as a conference presenter or committee or board member. It is my honor to introduce 2 of last year's award recipients who will present the awards for this year's recipients. First, we will have Allison Slatz present the award to Tammy Matteo.
Thank you, Mark. So in 1996, when Tammy began working at the City of Eagan as an intern, she started with the basics. And when I say basics, I mean she had a desk. She didn't have any GIS software or spatial data, and she didn't even have a computer. What Tammy did have was endless energy, a positive attitude, and a vision to serve the city and its residents. Tammy was given a digitizing table and a computer along with ArcInfo on a floppy disk, and Tammy digitized storm sewer data from paper maps and began to build a GIS. Tammy collaborated with other city departments to create more spatial data. She would drive a team out to collect soil samples in her mom's old convertible. And along with other public works staff, she built a bike with a giant antenna on it for collecting GPS locations. Through hard work and expert technical skills, Tammy led Eagan from paper maps to a collaborative team of GIS staff across departments with a portfolio of GIS data and countless innovative solutions. A recent example is an online portal where residents can submit requests, and GIS tools convert those requests to work orders that are sent directly to staff in the field. Tammy's leadership on this project saved thousands of dollars, and she won the Esri SAG Award. Tammy consistently serves the GIS community. She has been GIS LIS board chair, conference chair, and has organized workshops many times. Each year, Tammy works with GIS students as interns and seasonal workers. Tammy leads by example, professionally, with enthusiasm and a sense of humor. She brings out the best in people by encouraging them to be innovative, and her capacity to have fun while accomplishing serious work is probably why everybody loves being part of her teams. Tammy makes sure others are recognized for their work, and yet she remains humble about her own accomplishments. But today, we are here to recognize you, Tammy, for your significant contributions. It is my honor to present you with the Minnesota GIS LIS Polaris Leadership Award.
Wow, thank you so much, Allison. I am so honored to receive the Polaris Award this year. I want to thank Jeff Moss for nominating me for the Polaris Award and for everyone who contributed to the nomination and all of your kind words. It means so much to me. I would like to start by thanking a few people that have played an integral part in my GIS career, really without a computer to begin with, as Allison mentioned. First, I want to thank Mr. Wayne Schwanz, who was the former utility superintendent at the city of Eagan. Wayne hired me many years ago, and he always promoted technology, and he saw the big picture and knew that GIS would be the future for utilities and for city government. I would also like to thank my current supervisors at the city of Eagan, Dan Cook, the IT manager, Diane Miller, Assistant City Administrator, and Russ Mathis, Public Works Director, who are all joining us here today. Thank you for believing in GIS and in me, and for allowing the GIS staff at the city to explore new ways of doing things at the city. I hope we are serving you well. I'd also like to thank all of my current and former GIS colleagues at the city of Eagan and in other organizations. There are far too many to mention here today, but I want you all to know that you are so much appreciated. Minnesota has a very talented GIS community, and we are always helping each other out with new ideas, and we're always cheering each other on. This is showcased by the strong GIS community brought together each year, usually in person, hopefully we'll get there, by the Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium every year. I'm so proud to be a part of this organization. Minnesota GIS LIS volunteers work tirelessly to provide a wonderful community to learn and networking for people just starting out in their careers to those who are nearing retirement or into retirement. This is something very special. I am glad that I have been able to contribute and be a part of this wonderful organization over the years. I'd also like to thank my professors and teachers at Minnesota State University, Mankato, and the University of Minnesota. And last but not least, I want to thank my husband, Mike, who is joining us here today, and my family, my children, Nick, Rachel, Cole, and Sophia. They endure my excitement on a daily basis, especially now that we're all together all the time, over creating new GIS apps, and also me pointing out that GIS is basically all over the place. But they are the base of my life, and I'm ever grateful for their support. My love for GIS came naturally. Growing up, my dad worked in the airline industry, and we traveled quite a bit. I always loved the window seat. I was the kid that always followed the paper map on road trips so that we knew where we were at all times. I was the kid who loved our US states puzzle and knew the difference between New Hampshire and Vermont by shape. I'm so glad I was able to make a career out of this love for maps and geography and extend my interest to new things like technology and municipal government. People have said, do what you love and it doesn't seem like work. I think I'm one of those lucky people who are actually doing what they love. And I have worked at the city of Eagan in total for 25 years. Russ, our public works director, jokes that I started at the age of 7, but the time has actually flown by really quickly. And so much has changed over the years in our world and with technology. Looking at how GIS has been such a positive resource for many of the challenges that we are currently facing in the world, I'm even more grateful to be part of the GIS community. In these challenging times, I encourage all of you to stay positive, do what you can to help each other out in your careers and in the communities that you live in. We truly are all in this together, even if we have different ways of viewing the world, and we are always and always will be connected. GIS and all of you help tell that story. So thank you again for this great honor. I hope we can gather again soon in person and share our stories. Won't that be a great experience? Thank you very much.
Thank you, and congratulations, Tammy. Next, we will have Brad Anderson present the award to Corey Richter.
Well, thank you, Mark, and congratulations, Tammy. A lot of us identify with what you said. I'm just really honored to present our other Polaris Award to Corey Richter. Corey's the GIS coordinator for the city of Blaine. She's so well known in the GIS community. I've always been amazed at just her ability to just so quickly dial into, a project or an assignment and contribute to it. It's amazing. She's really a star. She served on the Geospatial Advisory Council for 7 years. She's a member of the GAC leadership team. She also serves as vice chair in the GAC. She's a member of the outreach committee. She contributes to that. She co-chaired the damage assessment data standard, and I can tell you that was a lot of years put in on that, and that was just recently adopted by the GAC here this fall. She's part of the group that reviews and recommends the governor's Geospatial Commendation Award nominations. But one of Corey's primary interests is emergency management. She's just had a long-term involvement and contributions to the GAC Emergency Preparedness Committee. And she's also on the leadership team of the EPC. She's always been heavily involved with GIS LIS, with the Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium and education in the state. She instructs at the GIS LIS spring workshops. She presents at almost every conference in multiple presentations per conference. She's worked with teachers to bring GIS into their classrooms, and she's kind of personally organized and worked on site the day of the 2016 GIS Day event that was held at the Science Museum of Minnesota. There's a line from her nomination letter from Allison and Sally that just says it perfectly. She's for the Polaris Award. Corey is truly a beacon of energy and creativity that inspires and guides the rest of us. I've been extremely lucky and very fortunate to work with Corey on a lot of different projects, and it's added up to a few years now. So I am just absolutely delighted and very proud and just honored to be able to be the one to introduce Corey. So I turn it over to Corey, and congratulations on this year's Polaris Award.
Thank you, Brad. It truly has been a great pleasure of mine to work with you all these past years on the GAC and elsewhere, and that we actually brought the damage assessment data standard to life after so much work. And it's also even just the work stories we share and the fact that we can talk about pollinator gardens and all these other things outside of GIS. So good morning to everybody. It really is a pleasure to be here. I want to extend my congratulations to fellow recipient Tammy, and then also to the Lifetime Achievement winners that are coming on afterwards. It is a pleasure to share the stage with you all today, even in a virtual environment. I also want to extend my gratitude to Allison and Sally for this nomination that you wrote and the testimonials that you gathered. It really was touching to know that not only do my peers notice my work, but they think it's worth being honored. I also want to say thank you to my family, my friends, my close confidants, my business and life partners that are out there, and to say to them, thank you for sticking with me for all these years that I've moved from state to state, I've jumped between jobs, and eventually got immersed into the nerdy techie world of GIS. And as Brad had mentioned, one of the notes in my bio is about being a prolific presenter. I like to think it's because I've got this great content, but I'm pretty sure it's just because of these magic tricks that I bring along with me. And it's not so much that people are wowed that I can suddenly color the coloring book. It grabs your attention. It really shows you what we can do here. But really what I want people to take away from my work and my volunteer events is that I care. I care about data with integrity, and I care about the ability to use it in ways to make our communities safer and cleaner. I care about making sure that our first responders can get out there to that call as fast as possible. And I care about making sure that people get the information that they're looking for about their communities so that there's transparency in government. When I moved to Minnesota in December of 2003, which I never recommend moving in the wintertime in Minnesota, but that seems to be what I do. I've done it twice now. I thought I had a direction and a plan. It turns out that not everybody shared that same vision as me. I lost my job working for an engineering firm, and I ended up bouncing around between a bunch of part-time jobs until I eventually found full-time work in municipal government. And it was at that time that I found the spark to ignite my passion about data and solving everyday issues. And what most of you don't know, though, is I almost never got into the geospatial community. When I was to take over some key geospatial processes, the person who was training me point blank looked at me and said, you know, I'm not going to show you the rest of this because I don't think you're going to understand it. So luckily at that point, that's one time where my stubbornness didn't allow my fire to go out. And thanks to people like Therese Rokamp, who's also here on this call, she was one of the key people that helped train me and get me really involved. Being geospatial professionals, we're in a unique position to contribute to improvements to our communities, our neighborhoods, and our society. We can literally draw the connections between various social factors and how they've shaped our physical landscape. We can illustrate the disparities and we can predict risk. We can be the standard of ethics and data reporting and in data privacy. But of all the things that we can do, is we can recognize when there are others that need us to come light them. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. I don't recall seeing Master of Theatrics in your nomination. We may have to amend that. Thank you, and congratulations both to Corey and Tammy. Next, we will move on to presenting our Lifetime Achievement Awards, which recognize a person or an organization that has made significant contributions in the GIS LIS field that have improved the quality of life for the people of Minnesota. That's a very high bar. This award is given periodically. There are 2 awards this year. Lifetime Achievement Award nominations are also reviewed by a group of previous winners. The awards recognize a lifetime of accomplishments in the field of GIS in our state that must be significant and widely known, be done for the greater good, advance the field of GIS in Minnesota and beyond, and or preserve and improve the quality of life in Minnesota. Today, we will recognize and celebrate a lifetime of accomplishments for Steve Benson and Therese Rokamp. We will begin with Tim Lesh presenting the award to Steve Benson.
Thanks, Mark. And I'd like to share a heartwarming welcome to all of my friends and colleagues on the call. I hope that you and yours are all healthy, safe, and productive. I would also like to encourage everyone to be kind to one another. This has been a year filled with change, challenge, and been very stressful for many. And our country's moving into a week that for some is going to produce a great deal of anxiety. Hang in there, and my thoughts are with you. But getting on with it, I don't remember when I actually met Steve Benson some 30 years ago, but I can remember quite vividly when I landed a job at the DNR, a job that I had always wanted since I was a kid. Steve took me under his wing and helped me start building a network of contacts within the DNR. I can remember quite distinctly being invited to the annual wildlife school at Itasca State Park, camping out in the snow, and gave a presentation on GIS. I was also coincidentally introduced to homebrew at the same time. Over the ensuing years, I watched Steve build a top-notch GIS team and directed efforts to promote the use of GIS and other technologies within the division and the department. Steve built a complex and sophisticated wildlife GIS program. From scratch, he was responsible for developing everything from data standards, recommending and supporting various iterations of hardware and software, hiring and developing staff, and providing tools, training, and GIS programs to the section of wildlife staff members in every corner of the state. In addition to his professional contributions, Steve worked countless volunteer hours at the Minnesota GIS LIS conferences to promote, set up, and run the primary networking event to raise funds for the consortium's scholarship account, furthering the next generation of geospatial professionals. Many of you may remember Steve and the beer tastings that he spent countless hours organizing. I remember those days fondly. I'd like to share, I could go on and on, but I think I'd like to share a few of the comments from the testimonials that were instrumental in Steve's nomination. And these are from some of the heavy hitters in the GIS world, I believe. From Les Mackey, Steve's unending energy, his compassion for the use of GIS technology, and his eagerness to always promote and educate while working together in his division across DNR at the state and local levels and beyond Minnesota has made his lasting mark in Minnesota GIS. This one is from Hal Watson. Steve leaves behind a legacy of excellent GIS professionals through his leadership both on the wildlife GIS team at DNR and across the state through his work as a college instructor. Steve's example as a GIS professional is one I aspire to, and I am glad to support his nomination. Here's one from Robert Mackey. Lifetime achievement implies not only a professional life well lived, but a legacy that echoes through the community and compounds itself in the contributions of others. I believe Steve has done just that and brought a lot of joy to the world at the same time. And this one's from former Deputy Commissioner Dave Shad, who was Steve's boss for quite some time and also a real leader in wildlife management. So finally, I believe Steve's people skills were instrumental to his success. His friendly and positive approach and his enthusiasm for his work and the role that GIS could play in helping folks do their work was infectious. He was also an effective collaborator and was able to use many of his GIS contacts within the DNR and other agencies and organizations to not only improve his team's work at the DNR, but also to improve the work of the broader GIS community in Minnesota. Steve, congratulations, my friend. You are so deserving of this award, and I hope to be able to see you in person soon. Steve?
It's a hard time of year, hard time in life right now. I'm thrilled to see every face that I can see on the screen and just go, oh, I haven't seen her in so long. And it's just a ton of fun. I was truly stunned by this award. It seems to me the most GIS work is done behind the scenes. And I always felt that I was behind the scenes far enough to not really stand out. Behind the scenes work can result in great maps, great analysis, good data, solid applications. But I always saw my work and that of my team as somewhat hidden. I saw us as a service unit within a service agency. As we did good work, it was just accepted and became the new normal without a lot of fanfare. People saw the outcomes, found out they could work better, make more informed decisions, and the new GIS capabilities simply became a quiet part of their normal work. We didn't look for accolades, and as a team, we would just move on to the next project and a long string of projects. And I assumed that most people did not see the complexity and difficulty of the work we're doing and just some of the outputs. When I was notified of this award, a surprise to me was finding that they sent me all the letters of nomination and recommendation people wrote. And aside from being emotionally stunned, I was extremely surprised to see how deeply people did understand what we're doing. That played out over and over and over again. And to me, that, you know, a word for other people is do not assume your work is not being noticed. Your clients are smart and they know what you're doing. They know what you're producing. I had learned early on through some interesting job experiences that I decided I was going to take responsibility for myself to make work fun no matter what I was doing. When I was in college, I worked seasonally for the U.S. Forest Service in Idaho for 4 years. And during spring tree planting, I worked in a team of 4 people preparing seedlings. There was a short window for planting while the weather was cool and wet. We worked 7 days a week, up to 12 hours a day. It was always cold. We lived in rain gear. We were always wet, and if it wasn't raining, it was foggy. And we were about an hour and a half from the nearest highway, so we lived in tents and trailers in the woods. The Forest Service called such a geographic feature a spike camp. And looking back, I prefer the description of a cluster feature. Our job was to count out and wrap bundles of 50 tree seedlings in wet burlap so tree planters could handle them easily. 3 million seedlings. The conditions were miserable, and we wouldn't have survived as a team if we couldn't find ways to enjoy the uniqueness of each of us and make the job fun and work well together. And that really got me going on in understanding it's important to actively make teams work. Draw people in, don't let people sit quietly through a committee meeting. I learned real teamwork doing forestry and wildland firefighting in 3 different states. Everybody relied on each other to do their jobs and contribute to the whole. We worked hard and felt good about what we accomplished. As teams, we fought fires, cruised timber, set up timber sales, and we even did analog GIS in 1979. These days, you can use 3D analysis tools and create a view shed. Well, if you're on this road right here, and we disturbed the forest, can it be seen? We were on the other end. We were gathering the data that when we'd pop out of the woods, if we could look down and see the highway down by the Clearwater Wild and Scenic River, we would note it on the map and try to map out those places that were visible. So we were doing viewshed mapping from up above, not from down below. And we also surveyed valleys to gather data for real early GIS, where they would take our surveying data and create a profile of valleys so they could determine if they could hang a skyline logging cable across valleys, sometimes mile to mile. And they would pick up logs and run them on trolleys up those things. I worked hard to get into natural resources. That's where I decided I wanted to make a difference in the world. And I earned a degree in forest management from the University of Minnesota while working seasonally in Idaho. A 2-year degree in architecture at North Hennepin Community College got me into drafting, and a student worker job at the university got me into drawing maps. I built enough background to get hired by Minnesota DNR Forestry, and when they needed help keeping up with the hand mapping of 9 million acres of state and county forest land, I moved into doing that. And then one day, a mini computer and software showed up with the arcane name of ArcInfo. Some might recognize the cup. It changed our lives. I found that GIS was a place where I could really make a difference in natural resource management, and I never looked back after that. My original goal was to live in the woods and manage forests. But then I found out how much fun it was to work with other people and enjoy the synergy of group creativity. My view of the GIS profession is that the people in it is a huge group of friendly, motivated, and collaborative people. There's broad sharing of ideas, data, methods, and solutions. And collaboration always seems to be the default attitude of GIS people. It's just so fascinating. It seems to draw people who enjoy working together. And I've never been to any other conferences like the GIS LIS conferences. There's so much openness, so much interest, and so many engaging people. In my work, new project ideas were some of the most exciting parts. The needs for information and thought processes on how that might happen were always fascinating. So fascinating that early on I was fairly gullible and fell for a series of simple ruses. One was, could you help me with some wolf population density maps? And 400 hours later, the project was finished for that year. Or could you help us develop a GIS curriculum at Itasca Community College? And then later, we really need you to commit to teaching 6 credits while you keep up with your regular job. But I learned to start saying, no, I never did learn to say no. But I was always driven to find solutions. I just love looking at problems and saying, how can we make this work and enable others to work with good data and results. I love the questions and ideas for new ways to use GIS. When somebody brought up a new idea for a system or analysis or data, my response was always that the answer is yes. And then we'd start to investigate what they really needed to accomplish their goals. So teamwork to me is huge. The people are just nothing but fun working in GIS. And then mentoring to me is incredibly important in both directions. You need to accept being mentored. Sometimes you don't even notice it. But it's important to allow yourself to be mentored and support other people and mentor them and promote the work that they do to other people. Certain other people taught me a lot about mentoring and what support really looks like. And some of those include Dave Shad, Dennis Simon, Tim Lesh, Bob Welsh, Les Mackey, and Will Craig. There are a lot of others, and it's too many to list. But as a rule, we need to share and mentor because GIS people build up so much specialized knowledge that we have to share to be really effective. I took on the attitude of never stop learning. It's always fun. And I strongly support those who want to learn. I don't recall that I ever said no to a request for additional training and education from my staff. One of my favorite stories is at an early ESRI user conference in California. Paul Olson and I were chatting. He's from DNR Forestry. We were chatting with a guy who worked at a large East Coast agency, and he was going on and on extolling the virtues of his staff, how wonderful they were, and how much great work they did. And Paul kind of interrupted him and said, "Are any of them here at this conference?" And the guy just kind of froze and looked down for a minute, and he said, "No, but they will be next year." And it's stuff like that that just, that's when they really stuck with me, is that, hey, I shouldn't be going to conferences because they're fun. I should be sending staff to conferences so they can learn and so they can experience it too. The part I like about GIS is there's always more than one way to solve a problem. And seeing others' solutions has been a constant source of fascination for me. Watching others experience the joy of innovation, seeing people come up with solutions that go well beyond the requirements and take the solution farther than anyone expected and produce things that are really amazing. The profession in general has been an absolute joy to work in. I was blessed to be able to hire great staff to build our team in wildlife. They came up with fascinating ideas, a profound level of determination to do the best work possible. They built solutions that broke ground and usually went beyond what was needed and typically delivered so much more than was ever envisioned. And much of it was truly groundbreaking, especially during its 16 years of wildlife disease outbreaks like bovine tuberculosis, chronic wasting disease, and avian influenza. Bruce Anderson, Julie Hines, Chris Sharonbrock, and Bob Wright, great job. I have learned just so much from other people, attitudes and little statements that have changed my life and how I view the world and people. But number one, find the fun. Make your job fun. You can find a way to do it. Be optimistic, receive help graciously, and offer help constantly. And find the humor, even while remaining a serious professional. One of my other, kind of not a mantra, but I always tried to emotionally leave my ego in the truck. Get to work, back in the day when somebody could actually drive to an office. Get to work, got my computer bag, got my lunch, ego in the truck, check, click the lock, and go into the building and leave it behind. And try to approach every day fresh. And I guess with just one more on my staff, that their innovations always made me smile. They'd take on a task and work through it, and I would see what they did and just could not stop smiling, going, that is so cool how they solved that one. For the consortium, it's been a tremendous pleasure working with all of you, and I hope to have a chance to keep making some contributions. Perhaps next year there'll be a conference with a scholarship fundraiser. And in general, thank you all for your creativity, your outlandishly good ideas, your friendship, and your passion for this vocation. I ended up considering it an avocation, not a vocation. It was just so much fun and took it home with me all the time too. In closing, please know that this award means more to me than any other I could have received. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, and congratulations. Next, we will have Mike Dalbo present the award to Therese Rokamp.
Thanks, Mark, and good morning to all my fellow consortium members out there, and congratulations to all of our award winners today. It is a great honor for me to introduce you to Therese Rokamp as one of our Lifetime Achievement Award winners for 2020. For almost 40 years, Therese contributed immensely to our community. I'll never forget first meeting her about 20 years ago myself. Even though I was new to Minnesota and to my job, she treated me as an equal, paying the same respect to me that she paid to my colleagues who had been around for years, and I'll never forget that. I'm sure this comes as no surprise to the hundreds, maybe thousands of you that had the pleasure to meet Therese and Mike Rokamp over the years as they ran Rokamp Associates. If you approach them with a question, a problem, or an opportunity, they greeted you with warmth and good humor, and that was matched by their expertise. Our community realized immeasurable benefits by having Therese in our ranks. If I had time to read you the 7 pages of testimonials that came with her nomination, that would be very obvious to you all. But I know I don't have to do that because so many of us are blessed to call her a colleague, a mentor, and a friend. So on behalf of the 36 people who co-signed her nomination, it gives me great joy today to present this 20 Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium Lifetime Achievement Award to Therese Rokamp. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, for those kind words. And I have to say right off the bat that in that almost 40 years, I did numerous presentations to large groups, and I don't ever remember being as nervous as I am right now. But I want to start by congratulating Tammy, Corey, and Steve on your awards, all very well deserved. And I thought I was doing something interesting when I would bring geography bingo to my workshops or in my classes. And then I saw what Corey just did, and I thought, oh man, I was nowhere close to that. But so congratulations to you three. I'm honored to be part of the same group with you three. And I want to thank the people who started this nomination last fall. I have to say that when I received notice of this award a month ago or so, it took me by surprise. It was a very emotional thing for me as well. And I was amazed by the number of people who thought I was deserving of it and took the time to support it. So thank you to everybody who participated in that. Now, when I was in 5th grade, if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I would have told you a geography teacher. And then someplace between 5th grade and when I started college, that had gotten put by the wayside. And when I started school at the University of Minnesota in Duluth, I actually started as a chemistry major. And the first week of class, I had a chemistry lab, and I couldn't find the lab in the building. I don't think there was a map back then, but at any rate, I couldn't find the lab. Some of you would find it hard to believe, but I was too timid to ask anybody where the lab was. So my solution was to change my major. So I changed my major 2 or 3 times officially, where I went through all the paperwork. And then I changed it another couple times where I didn't go through the paperwork. And then I ended up migrating or finding geography again. And so I ended up with a geography major from UMD. And then I took a year off and worked at the Arrowhead Regional Development Commission for a year. And then I went to the University of Kansas and got a graduate degree in geography. So I have to thank Gordon Levine and George Jenks, who were my professors, my advisors at UMD and at KU, for their guidance in making decisions that ultimately put me on the career path that I ended up on. And I do have to share a couple of things. I mean, it is a Lifetime Achievement Award. I've been around for a long time. Some of you will have no idea what I'm talking about, but my job at the Arrowhead Regional Development Commission involved being a key punch operator. And when I was at KU, I took one class that introduced this concept of mapping using a computer. And we plotted XY coordinates of soil units using a line printer, whereby, and some of you have no idea what a line printer was, but if you imagine a typewriter where you would type multiple letters on top of each other to get different shades of colors. A period would be a lighter color on the map. If you typed an X over an O versus a percent sign, you'd get a darker color. That was my first introduction to a computerized map, or beginning of GIS. So I go way back. But when I got done with graduate school, I'd been fortunate enough to meet Earl Nordstrand someplace along the way at UMD. I ultimately worked with him for a short time at ARDC, and when I graduated from KU, first he hired me as a student worker in the summer between my 2 years of graduate school, and then he hired me as a full-time employee when I finished graduate school. And Earl was a very important part of the beginnings of GIS in the Minnesota community in the early 80s. Unfortunately, he ended up leaving the state and going to Alaska for a while, and then went to Esri for a long time. But in those early years at LIMIC, he was a very innovative. He found solutions to problems, including things like hooking up an overhead camera to a computer so you could actually see what you were drawing when you were digitizing. That was a solution that Earl and Pete Olson created together at LIMIC in the early 80s. And the point is that Earl was somebody who would meet with clients, promise them anything they asked for, tell them it wouldn't cost very much, and then come back to the office and assign that project to somebody who often ended up to be me, to try to figure out how to deliver what he promised for hopefully close to the amount of money he had told them. So because of Earl, I learned how to approach problems creatively, how to find solutions to that weren't identified at the time that the problem was raised. He was very good at creatively applying GIS technology to whatever projects came up. And he was a very important mentor to me in those early days. So I have to thank Earl for that. I also have to thank Earl because it was on the first day of my full-time job with LIMIC that I was in a staff meeting, and I was introduced to Mike Rokamp. And so I also have to thank Les Mackey, because I think Les was the one who was responsible for hiring Mike. But so Mike and I met on my first day at work, and 10 months after we met, we were married. So I have to thank Earl because Earl and Mike both very much affected my career path. So in 1992, I was actually, I had been working in GIS for a while, but I was also pregnant with my third daughter, and I had decided I was going to leave GIS altogether. I was going to find a job where I could work from home, be with my family more. I actually went through the 10-week H&R Block tax preparation class because I was planning to start my own tax return business at home, which is what my father-in-law did successfully. And I thought, oh, I can work at home for 4 months for the year and then have a lot of time with my family. So I went through the whole 10-week class. And then shortly after my daughter was born, I was contacted by various people I had known through the GIS community, asking me to work on projects with them. And I think Dave Brandt was one of the very first contacts, and I did some early projects with Washington County through Dave. And it led me to decide, with Mike's encouragement, to start to start RoCamp Associates in 1992. So because of Mike's encouragement, I started it in 92. In 1996, Mike left his marketing job with Pillsbury to join me in RoCamp Associates. And it was Mike's idea to start doing things like our technical forums that we offered for many, many years as a free 2.5-hour training session, which Mike saw them as coming in as the marketer. He saw them as a low-key marketing opportunity for us, but we also saw them as an important way of everybody in the GIS community being able to get together, to do some networking, create relationships, at the same time as learning something that was pertinent to the GIS industry. And Mike was a really important part of everything that our business did in the community that way. So, and an important part of my career's success. So I have to thank Mike, and I just wish Mike was here to share with me on this today. But throughout my career, I loved all the problem-solving aspects. I love sharing knowledge. I love teaching classes and meeting new people. I was very lucky, and I am very grateful that I could work in a field where it was a technology that was always evolving and providing new opportunities to learn. And it continues to provide those new opportunities and challenges for all of you in the industry. I feel fortunate to have met so many people along the way who allowed me to be part of their career path and who also supported me in my career path. So I'm honored and humbled to receive this award, which did arrive yesterday in the mail. So thank you. And thank you for all of your support over the years.
Thank you, Therese, and congratulations to you. We're in such a strange situation this year. We obviously would love to have presented these awards in person at our conference, but that's just not a possibility this year. And one of the things we're missing is the applause. And so I want to just take a moment to do something a little weird here. What I want to do is ask each of our award winners today to close your eyes and just imagine yourself at the GIS LIS conference with those hundreds of people there, many of whom you know. And just imagine them there, and you've just completed your remarks, and they begin clapping. And they're clapping enthusiastically and joyfully and genuinely, not because they feel like, oh, everyone's clapping and I have to clap, but because they see the meaning in these awards, and they're clapping for you and know that you deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and congratulations again to our Student Scholarship Award winners and to Jim, Corey, Steve, and Therese on their career accomplishments. We are now going to continue with our annual business meeting. Our bylaws require an annual meeting for our members. We need to do this to maintain our nonprofit 501c3 status with the state and IRS. Any member can review our financial records, and any board of directors can assist you with that request. I'd like to thank our 2020 board of directors. It's been a very challenging year, but they have made it very easy for me. We were only able to meet in January, and then for our day-long retreat in February in Edina to set our goals for this year. The accomplishments that we have done was we had a board booth at the GIS Student Career Fair, and we also gave them an event grant. We had a booth at the Minnesota Society of Professional Surveyors. We gave a grant to the Southeast Minnesota Users Group. We did have a salary survey, and we'll review or give out the results soon. We created an Equity Advocates Ad Hoc Committee. As Stacy mentioned earlier, we do now have a standing K through 12 education committee. We did create a professional development ad hoc committee, and we will see them soon at the virtual career fair. Thanks to Chris Mavis, who was our appointed surveyor member this year, he set up a joint meeting with the Minnesota Association of County Surveyors and the Minnesota Society of Professional Surveyors. We're going to meet again in February and hope that our groups can work together. With Chris's appointment being successful this year, we are having a 2-year representative nomination now being opened up for that surveyor position. And our next, we'll have a booth at the University of Minnesota GIS Virtual Career Fair on November 20th. Another big accomplishment was our YouTube channel, which Stacy touched on briefly earlier. I'd like to thank Kate Carlson, who was our spring workshop chair to start gathering our first few videos, and they are posted online. And also Katie Rosman, who was our fall conference chair this year. Even though we couldn't meet in person, she was able to gather 8 virtual webinars, and thanks to our members who volunteered to put them together to share their knowledge and their resources with us, so you can at your pleasure review those meetings. And also thanks to John Nerger, who helped set that YouTube channel up. If you would like to get involved with the community, as of now, our 2021 nominations are open for board of directors. Some positions are 2 years, others are 3. We meet once a month for a couple of hours and do have 1 full day retreat to plan out our goals. The positions open this year are consortium chair-elect, treasurer, conference chair-elect, state government, private, and surveyor. Those nominations are due by November 13th. If you don't feel like you can commit to the board of directors, we do have many committees that you can sit on. Communications helps with our Twitter account, Facebook, and e-announcements. Equity Advocates is just brand new, so I'm excited to know what they're going to be doing over the next year. Fall conference, always helpful to get involved with sessions review, workshops, network opportunities. Hopefully we'll be in person next year. Higher education, as Wu had announced, who our Student Scholarship Award winners were this year, they all received $200. Our K through 12 education with our Educator Day and supporting our teachers. New is our professional development and working with our members for networking. Spring workshops, our planning will be starting soon here in January and February. And finally, our website. And thank you, Jerry, for keeping that up and running. I would like to take a moment to remember our colleagues, Mike, Carrie, and Thomas, who we've lost this year. We'll miss their creativity and contributions to our GIS community. Please mark your calendar. Hopefully we'll be in person October 13th through the 15th of 2021. We'll be in St. Cloud at the Rivers Edge Convention Center, and Stephanie Boyum will be our fall conference chair. So get in touch with her if you'd like to help out with the planning. And finally, Michelle, is there any questions or comments that we need to address through the chat window this morning?
There aren't any, but there's been a lot of nice comments in there.
That is wonderful. Well, I would like to have a motion to end our annual business meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? I'll take that as an aye, so we don't have 20 million. Thanks, Mike, for the thumbs up.
Aye.
We are now adjourning our Minnesota GIS LIS Consortium virtual annual business meeting and awards ceremony. Thank you, everyone, and have a safe remainder of the year.